Good afternoon, everybody. Jason Pritchard here with you at Cold Rain Weather Command in Morganton, North Carolina. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon on Sunday, March the 2nd. I've been gone most of the weekend, so I couldn't get a real video out yesterday. I did a little bit of a short. I haven't done many shorts, kind of experimenting around with that a little bit, but visiting family in Virginia, but back here in North Carolina today. And it's a little bit cooler than normal, but that's going to change over the coming days. And was going to do a Cold Rain's Weather World, but that show takes quite a bit of time to produce, and I have to research some of the items that I bring into the show and write some of the content, specifically some of the non-weather related content and so forth. So today I wanted to kind of keep it focused right on the weather since we've got so much to get into. We've got weather happening right now, severe storms in parts of Texas and Oklahoma, and then the big story over the coming week is the big system that's coming in. So I wanted to hit on that and then take a quick peek at the long range, and we'll do all of that as we get through the show. If you're new to the channel, I appreciate you being here for the first time. Please consider hitting the subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up if you like the content. Share it with friends and family. Make a comment about the show. The only way I can do these shows and make this channel successful is to give you all what you think is valuable and fun and entertaining to a degree. But I want to do that. So if you have comments about the show, suggestions for the show, happy to take those under advisement. I'll respond to each and every content. But thank you for being here. And without any other bloviating on my part, let's just go ahead and dive in. Now we're going to start by taking a quick peek here at our national radar mosaic, and you can see already we've got showers and thunderstorms developing here, and they have actually developed and they're moving along into Oklahoma, approaching Kansas. We've got a little cluster back here in Texas working in Oklahoma. This is where the severe weather is, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. We've got some other showers back up into southwest Washington, northwest Oregon, into Nevada, California. And really, other than a few snow showers up here across the border in Canada, maybe working back into the UP of Michigan, nothing else to speak of out there. So it's sort of, with the exception of those areas I showed you, it's kind of a quiet day. The satellite loop bears that out. You can see some high clouds and low and mid-level clouds, of course, up here in the Pacific Northwest and working into the Great Basin, and then into Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. We've got that cluster of showers and thunderstorms that has developed and some high clouds streaming. There's a little upper level low here that's sparking all of this. Some high clouds up here streaming in across the lakes, and then clear as a bell over here in the east, across the rest of the eastern seaboard down into Florida. Just a nice day, and the weather is warm in the southern part of the area. It's cool up here in the north, and we can take a look at our temp map and kind of see that. We've been talking about the troughing that would have worked in over the course of the weekend, and of course it did so, and you can see that on the map. So we've got a little bit of a trough that works in through the lakes to portions of the south, just west of the Alps, and then up into the northeast. 20s up here in the northeast. Well, actually 20s around the lakes. It's very, very cold up here in the teens, single digits. Even as we get way up here toward Canada, and, we can see some ones and twos and things like that show up. So very, very cold up here in the northeast. That's going to be in and out. It's not going to be a sustained pattern. And then down the eastern seaboard, it's a little bit warmer. So it's about 53 here where I am in Morganton, a little bit chillier in Charlotte, and then 50s, 60s, 70s across the southern tier, 50s and 40s across of course, the western portion of the nation into the Great Plains. We're looking at highs in the 50s this afternoon. Feels really nice, and you get in the lakes, we're back into the 30s. So fairly nice temperature pattern, tranquil across the most of the nation except for down here in Oklahoma and Texas. And we're going to switch gears and take a look at that right now. So if we look at our hazards map, there's quite a few colors starting to show back up here, and some more are going to show back over the coming days. And so high wind watches, the system that's going to get wound up this week is going to have a lot of wind energy that it creates, and a lot of that's going to work into the surface layer, and so we're going to see winds speeds pick up across this area. There's already gusty winds and low humidity back into New Mexico and Colorado, Texas, and so you're seeing red flag warnings out there. Wind advisories, special weather statements for burning and things like that. It's very dry, so be careful if you're outside. Try not to burn anything over the next couple of days until we get some rain that moves through, and then maybe it would be a better conditions for burning. Winter storm watches up, where we're going to see snow on the cold side of the storm. I expect to see more in the way of winter storm watches as we go into the rest of or the beginning of the work week up into Minnesota, Wisconsin, probably Iowa, South Dakota. You'll probably see this whole entire area up the UP of Michigan covered in winter storm watches and eventually warnings, as that storm system looks like it's going to bring quite a bit of snow to those areas. So that's our current alert map. Taking a look at our severe threat this afternoon, it's a fairly small area under the gun for severe weather back in north central Texas around the Panhandle and into southwestern Oklahoma. And we'll zoom in here and you can see that little area of a slight risk, and over that area there is a severe thunderstorm watch in effect. The darker green is where you could potentially see a severe storm, although it would be isolated in nature, and then the lighter green is just general thunderstorm activity where we might find a thunderstorm or two pop up. If we look at the watch that I told you about, there it is. It's sitting here in that same general area where we saw the slight risk. We even see a cluster of severe thunderstorm warnings. So if we look at our radar image, I think probably our radar is going to show that these storms are really moving out of that area now and weakening. And you can see back here, there were a lot of pinks and reds indicating hail probably. So you had I saw some reports of hail, so you've had some hail here. There was a tornado warning in effect, but I didn't see a report of a tornado actually touching down. It was Doppler indicated. There was some rotation, and so they issued a tornado warning for that. But these storms are moving north of Altus now and on up in toward Woodward. They'll probably continue to weaken as they encounter an environment that's less favorable, and all of this other activity is just sort of moving on off to the north and northeast and weakening as it does so. So this should calm down as we get through the evening. But our big main event show kicks off tomorrow evening and works through Wednesday morning for the most part, and then Wednesday afternoon things are kind of winding down. But the Storm Prediction Center has issued their risk assessment for the next several days, and so this is valid Monday through Tuesday, so essentially 7 a.m. Monday through 7 a.m. Tuesday. And here is the area over Oklahoma and Texas that we would find a slight risk. As we get into Tuesday to Wednesday, this is the core of the severe threat. So a large area from essentially East Texas, East Oklahoma, up into Missouri, all the way over to areas in essentially most of Alabama, except for the far eastern portions. And then down here where Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi meet, this is the area that we're expecting this is an enhanced area of risk for severe weather. This is where all of the ingredients seem to overlap the best to create a recipe for severe storms. Wind, potentially hail, potentially tornadoes. There are some question marks and some uncertainties, and I'll talk about those, but this is the bullseye for the moment, and I would expect that to continue to be in this same general area as we move the next day or two. And then we get on into day 4. The risk shifts over to the eastern seaboard. Now timing is going to matter here, as these thunderstorms now, the other day it looked like they were going to come through in the afternoon and evening. It sped up a little bit. The GFS has been kind of fast. The Euro's been kind of slow. They're starting to converge. The Euro's come up in speed a little bit. So the models are pretty close now as how this tracks through, and it looks like it's going to track through potentially around midday in some of these eastern parts. So there may be some recovery or some heating of the air mass to help lead to additional instability here. So we're going to watch this play out over the next couple of days, and we'll get a better handle on what parameters exist, particularly along in the east, as these storms make their way through the south. Going to take a look here at one of the mechanisms that we like to see when we look at the potential or risk for severe weather. I've been talking about this, is dew points and moisture. You need low-level moisture and low-level warmth in an ideal situation to help fuel thunderstorms. So this is our fuel, low-level warm moist air. And so we're starting out this afternoon. There's a ton of drop. Where you see these browns, these are dew points, by the way. These browns are very, very, very dry air. Hard to get rain, precipitation, thunderstorms, anything with this brown active, or these brown areas. So you want to see greens, and certainly down here in the Gulf of Cold Rain, there's plenty of green. And putting this on into motion, this is this afternoon. If we look out as we get into Sunday evening into early Monday morning, look at this. So by Monday afternoon, we're starting to see the dew points recover into Oklahoma and all the way up here, really into Kansas. So these dew points um, are pulling in here. As a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's put it on Fahrenheit so we can look at numbers that we're more familiar with. So 50s, you start to see these neutral colors. You're in here in the 40s, around 50, and you start to get up into the greens. You're looking at 60s, darker greens in the 70s. The darker greens don't really make it in, but dew points in the 50s and 60s certainly are going to pull in through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. And then as we move on through the rest of Monday into early Tuesday, those shift on off to the east. This dry line kind of comes in. You can see the signature of the storm sort of winding up, and it pulls the front through, and dry air behind, moist air out in front. This front's going to have some moisture to work with. It's not the best we've ever seen, but there's still some here, and you can see this going out in time. Wednesday morning, this area of convection's working into North Carolina, pulling moist air up ahead of it, out of the Gulf and off the Atlantic, and so that works on off by Wednesday evening and night. Your dry air is just plunging in, and we're cooling off too. The other mechanism that we need is winds turning and strengthening with height, and we see that too. We'll look at that in a minute. But what do we see here with our total energy available for the storm? So we look at CAPE, and we're looking at the European models idea of what CAPE should be. The little blue colors here, very meager. As we get into the darker greens and yellows, that's where we start to see impressive amounts of energy that thunderstorms need. So we'll put this into motion. Look at that. We start to get a big surge into Texas and Oklahoma, but watch what happens as we kind of get into the east. It sort of dies out as this line moves in. Nighttime happens, the air cools down, and then as we get back into a daytime again, air heats up and you get a little bit more in the way of energy, but there's not a lot. Right? We're looking at values, around 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 for a large portion of the Southeast. So where we're really concerned here in this area of Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and to Alabama. So some of these places in here, you're seeing some level of energy for thunderstorms. You're certainly seeing wind in the upper atmosphere. We'll look at that too. But all of those ingredients kind of come together here. Best, we're looking at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. So we're in the afternoon and start to get some heating of the day. And then that moves on off. By the time we get into Wednesday afternoon and evening, all of this is pushing out across Wednesday night. Everything's gone. So that's what we're looking at there. So here's our 850 millibar jet. We've talked about this the last few days too. You need wind energy if you want to have a severe threat, and we certainly have that in spades. As we go out from today into tomorrow, Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday, you can see this jet. So look at this jet. It starts to really, really strengthen. So we're looking at reds, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 miles per hour. These whites, when you start to see these whites show up, we're looking at speeds around maybe 80, 85 miles per hour, somewhere in there. So you see the center of the circulation of the storm. You got winds on the backside. There's going to be strong wind, gradient winds in a large area around the storm. Even if you don't get severe thunderstorms, winds are going to be a problem for a lot of folks. We're not talking about necessarily 70 or 80 miles per hour winds for a lot of people, but certainly background winds of 10, 20, 30 miles an hour, gusts into the 40s, maybe even 50 in spots outside of thunderstorms. So prepare for some windy conditions Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And look at this as we move this on to motion further. So we're looking at Tuesday evening, overnight, Wednesday morning, and then that jet strengthens a little bit into the Carolinas here up into Virginia, and the storm's winding up over the lakes. So plenty of low-level wind, and as the wind turns with height, you get directional shear across pretty much across the entire South. You have this this pattern of high shear. So anywhere in this area here, you've got plenty of wind shear. Speed changes with height, increases with height, and turns with height. So you've got that in spades. The problem is instability, and that's where the question marks are. Is there enough warm, moist air being pulled out of the Gulf to produce fuel for these thunderstorms that are going to develop, and you get these big updrafts? It makes use of all that turning, and you can get big tornado outbreaks. This doesn't look like that just because the instability is quite limited. And so we're going to see how this plays out. I would certainly expect some tornado reports, not necessarily a big violent tornado outbreak, but the main threat is this linear line of storms moving through the squall line, if you will help to organize with all of this low level wind energy and push that wind to the ground. And so we're looking at a potential wind threat more than anything else, winds gusting potentially into the 70s in spots. So we're going to watch that, but certainly all hazards are on the table. Don't write off a tornado threat just because we don't have the greatest amounts of instability, because sometimes shear can can compensate for that. But we're going to watch all of this through the next couple of days and see how it goes. And then your 500 wind speeds too. So you look at winds increasing with height. We saw wind speeds of around 80 miles per hour and at times with that low level jet. So if we put the 500 millibar, this is 18,000 feet up or so, you start to really see this crank. And the color scale is a little bit different here. So these whites are around 105, 110 knots. So you're looking at about 130 miles an hour or so. Certainly you see that increasing wind with height. So plenty of shear. Just, do we have enough fuel for these storms to really get going? And the shear is going to to compensate for the lack of fuel in places. But when it starts to get night, you'll see the line kind of wane a little bit when we look at the surface map. And then that jet just sort of just continues to maintain and hold on to its strong nature as it works into the eastern seaboard here. By the time Wednesday evening rolls around, everything's kind of calming down in terms of the severe threat. And then here is the European models, the ensembles. We're using the ensemble. So we're looking at the wind gust potential. So look at this. We're going to see this kind of roll out here as we get into Tuesday. So look at this. Tuesday afternoon, you're seeing big gusts. Now this is not necessarily in line with the line of showers and storms, but there's a big gradient wind potential here. So the storm's going to wind up. It's going to become very, very strong, anomalously strong, and you're going to see a nice wind potential here in Kansas and Colorado, Nebraska, Texas. There's already high wind watches up for this potential. So we're going to look at winds gusting potentially 60 miles per hour in the afternoon. So we'll see, potentially could see some power outages as a result of this. We go on into Tuesday evening into Wednesday, the overnight hours, that kind of winds down a little bit, but we're still seeing gusts into the 40s. These orange colors are around 50. So we're seeing gusts around 50 up into Iowa, Missouri. That's going to work into the Heartland area, the upper Midwest, Iowa, plenty of strong wind here. There's snow that's going to be falling at this time as well. And so we're going to see potentially blizzard-like conditions as the snow works down and the winds work up. And going to be a lot of blowing snow in some of these areas in Wisconsin, up into the UP of Michigan, Minnesota. So you're going to take the brunt of that. And you can see winds all throughout the Tennessee Valley into the east. Even if you don't get gusts into the 50s, you're going to get gusts into the 40s probably. So I would expect some wind advisories to be issued as we go through the week. So it's going to be a windy couple of days, and then all of that kind of eases as we get into Thursday and Friday and kind of dies down, the storm moves out. That is our, kind of the severe side of the storm. So a lot of threats to think about: tornadoes, potentially a few strong tornadoes, certainly a wind threat, some hail possible. Heavy rain's not going to be that big of a threat as the line's going to move through pretty quickly, but definitely some potentially heavy snow on the north side. So switching gears and taking a look at that, we can actually see, let's do this first. Let's take a look at the presentation of the actual storm. So storm's going to wind up here. We're looking at Tuesday morning, 9:90. That line of storms is actually moving through eastern Oklahoma and Texas, and you can kind of see that here moving out a little bit. It moves on in, and you can kind of see the broken nature of that line. If we start to get supercellular activity, of course, that's going to make use of the turning a little bit better, make use of the environment better, potentially spin up some of those tornadoes. So we've got to watch for that. The storm is deepening. Look at that, 984 millibars. Putting that on out, 981, you start to see the snow break out as this high pressure works in. Cold air out of Canada is mixing in. The storm's drawing in cold air. We're looking at, what time are we looking at? 10 p.m. So this is 10 p.m. on March the 4th. That's working into Tennessee, down here, just coming out of Mississippi, Alabama. You've got more of a linear configuration now. So maybe some supercells out ahead of this line, but you're starting to see an organized wind threat as you get into 10 p.m. And then start to see snow breaking out back in Iowa and eastern Nebraska into Minnesota, Wisconsin. Bring this on. Look at that, 981 millibars. This is like an 80th or 90th percentile storm. I mean, this is pretty rare to get storms this strong this time of year up in this part of the country. And so going to be strong winds, heavy rain, heavy snow, thunderstorms. And see this thunderstorm line kind of lose its intensity a little bit as it comes through as the nocturnal heating or cooling takes over, I should say. You see the line lose a little bit of its punch. Storm's still pretty strong working into Wisconsin. You got that wraparound deformation band of snow and just dropping heavy snow, high winds, blizzard-like conditions, probably going to be some travel impacts, going to be some power outages for sure with some such strong winds. And then that broken line moves through the Carolinas, Virginia, down the eastern seaboard into Florida. And then this whole thing starts to move off the coast by Wednesday afternoon. Snow's winding down up here across the UP of Michigan to the Great Lakes, and it begins to pull out and works through the Northeast a little bit. And then the next system comes along. So active pattern shaping up, severe threat this week. Pay attention to local weathercast, your National Weather Service. They're going to have watches and warnings as those are become as they issue those. So, make sure you have a way to stay on top of alerts and keep an eye to the sky as we go through the week. Total precipitation, we're looking at essentially a footprint of an inch and a half, probably with this storm. This is going to be a quick mover, and that's going to save us from big flooding potential, and then some precipitation out here on the West Coast. And then the next thing I want to show is just the snowfall potential. So 6 inches of snow, 4 to 6 inches from Iowa back into parts of Minnesota, into Wisconsin. Really, it looks like the UP of Michigan and Lake Superior are going to pick up the lion's share of the snow, where you could see 6, 8, 10 inches of the white stuff fall out of the sky. Back into the Rockies, we're going to see some snow too. But this is the main area that we're going to be focusing on. And so that's how it shakes out. That's your severe storm, your anomalous storm. It's going to be an interesting week, a wild week. So keep in mind, as I said, keep in touch with the weather, and I'll keep you posted here, and I'm sure other people will do the same. And there you have it. So if we want to switch gears now and take a quick look at the long range, we'll do that. And I'll start here with the jet stream. Looking at this is this afternoon, so we're going to put this on the motion. We already saw some of this, so I'm going to just flip through this. This is up at 300 millibars, and so this gives you kind of a good idea of what's going on, where your weather systems are, and how they're tracking. So we've got an active pattern returning. Look, another system set to come into the United States. This is our big system here that's winding up out in the Midwest. And here, look, another system working into California, bringing rain to California and Washington. We put this on into motion at 96 hours. We're looking at, essentially Friday the 3rd. Another system is set to come in. So Saturday, March 8th, we're out here way in time now. We're looking at 6 days out. Another system coming in. Look at this big U-shape. I've told you about these U-shaped troughs before. When you get into these really sharp U-shapes or V-shapes, you start to see storm systems, and this is a storm system that's working into the West Coast. It comes on in, and these are coming into the West Coast. They're tracking across the country. Not that every system is going to wind up like this last one did, but we're still going to see a couple of days of calm, followed by another system, followed by a couple of days of calm. That's what this show is showing you here. Another system working in as we get on out into March the 12th. And the hits just keep on coming. March the 15th, another little wave coming in, and these sort of roll across. This is a European ensemble. The GFS generally agrees. And so that's our jet stream pattern. Your cold air is bottled up in Canada, starts to work into the West Coast, potentially as we get to the end of the pattern or end of the week. And then look at this. So this is our 500 millibar height pattern. As we go way out in time, you've got this big depiction of sort of this trough out here, and then you get this ridge that kind of comes up like this. Not quite as dramatic as I'm showing, but these orange colors represent higher heights, which represent warmer temperatures. So over here, you're getting your plus anomalies. Up here, you're getting your minus anomalies. It's going to be cold, going to be warm. Clashes of air masses, where you tend to get these systems, like I've been telling you, when you get these big sharp clashes of air masses in the spring, a lot of energy in the pattern, a strong active jet. You're going to see storm systems have a tendency to wind up and produce wild weather. And we are in a wild weather pattern, and it does not look like it's going to abate anytime soon. As a matter of fact, if you look here, we roll our surface map on out. Look at this. So here's our big storm winding up in the center. The next one comes on through. It's not quite as strong, but it's still, there's no precipitation really all that much showing up here, but I would expect more of that. And then it delivers a little punch to the southeast. The next one comes in. Uh, Really, the core of it's up here along the Canadian border. There's a cold front that drags through, potentially some strong and severe weather with that. And then the next one comes in. Look at this 977. The model's probably kind of being a little wonky with that. A little cattywampus with this one. So we're not going to, that's a technical term, by the way, cattywampus. Look that one up. But that's going to be, another potential severe weather maker, potentially some snow through the lakes again. And we're just one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Total precipitation, looking at the GFS, the European agrees with this pretty much, but your biggest footprint is in the east, where you've got 1 to 3 inches of precipitation here. Some of this is going to be in the form of snow, much of this is going to be rain. And then areas in Washington, Oregon, California, going to see more rain, snow in the higher elevations as this works in. And you can see, look at this general footprint here. You've got your general footprint of rain. These systems kind of come in like this. They work across the country. And so look at this. You're seeing kind of an active pattern like this. They wind up here and they kind of get big. You get these fronts that drag through. But this is your precipitation footprint, where you're going to see the lion's share of the precipitation over the next couple of weeks, the way it looks right now. And then lastly, temperatures. Your temperature anomalies. It's going to warm up in the east. You can see this as we go through the next 15 days or so. These are 5-day averages, and where you see the darker anomalies, that's where you're seeing the higher risk for above normal temperatures. And we certainly see that in the plains, working into the Midwest, into the East Coast, and it starts to get really warm as we get out here into the second week of the 2-week period. So kind of a variable pattern, but once again, the models are showing a big ridge in the east with warm temperatures and a trough in the west with cool temperatures. And we'll watch it and see how it turns out. But that's it. That's your, kind of a quick, it's not so quick when you look at the total time on the video. It's probably going to be about 20 some minutes, but it's a lot to get to, and sort of a quick summary of how all of the threats are going to play out and what your long range is going to look like. I'm going to be in an appointment most of the day tomorrow, so I'll do a very fast video in the morning probably. And then back with a Cold Rain's Weather World on Tuesday. I'll have a brand new sponsor for that, and we'll have a couple of other segments in there. Have our trivia question, of course, and maybe do a little bit of fun stuff too. But we've got a severe weather event, so I'll spend a lot of time talking about that as well. Follow me on Twitter at Real Cold Rain. I'll keep you in the loop if I see anything different or changing. As the situation unfolds, I'll make sure and tweet about it. But I hope you have a great afternoon, great evening. It's about 5 o'clock, so we're in the neighborhood of 20-25 minutes on this one. So I'll stop talking. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you later. Bye.